Thank you. Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. What a beautiful space. I'm going to go very quickly through this. The nexus of ouroldnumber.com is really pretty simple. We were looking for ways to apply current technologies to existing applications, specifically communication applications. There have been a lot of advances in how we communicate in communications technology over the year, some of them truly revolutionary, the transistor, fiber optics, microwaves, microchips, but most of the developments in communications technology have been evolutionary, the application of revolutionary technology to how we communicate with each other. An example, texting. Some of you may think that texting arrived with the smartphone. It's actually been around since 1832 when Joseph Henry and Samuel Morse invented the telegraph. When the telegraph came along, short messages could be sent long distances over wires with the use of an electronic key and an abbreviated language called Morse code. Skip forward to 1895. Marconi perfects the transmission and reception of wireless radio signals. Now, using that same electronic key and Morse code, you can transmit short messages long distances without the use of wires, and you can send it to more than one person or place at a time. Now, interestingly, they also used short acronyms to save keystrokes. I'm not sure that they used LOL or BFF, but you've probably heard of SOS and AOK. There's an application of technology to improve an existing communications application. So, what's one of the oldest communications applications that's still in common use today? The home telephone. It's amazing that there's still telephones out there, landline telephones out there, but there are. In the age group 45 to 65, 64% of homeowners have landline telephones still today. Now, if you're 35 and under, the number is more like 11%. But in the target demographic that we've chosen, that 64% of homeowners represents over 29 million individual homes. So it's a very large market. So we asked ourselves, why are people still paying for a landline telephone when they mostly use mobile devices? And we found a lot of interesting answers to that question. And I won't go through all of them, but I can tell you the most important answer to that question was the number is important to them. They probably had the number for a long time. It's very likely most of you can remember your home telephone number from when you were growing up. The most important reason people still have landline telephones is it's important to them. It's part of their identity in the community. The church directory has it, the school directory has it, the doctor's office has it. It's the only number Aunt Ida remembers. It's part of them. The home telephone number is the key. It's not the phone, it's not the wires, it's the number. So how can we apply current technology to improve on that rather aged application? Well, first of all, what's the problem? Problem is the wires. Just like with the telegraph, you could communicate to anyone who happened to be on the telegraph line. With the addition of wireless, you can communicate anywhere. Well, now with mobile devices, we talk to each other all over, wherever we are. But our home phone number is stuck at home. How can we improve on that? What can we do? What technologies can we bring to bear to make that better? We came up with an idea, the virtual telephone number. ouroldnumber.com makes a home telephone number now fastened to your home virtual. In other words, it can be used anywhere. We knew that with the use of voice over the internet technology and hosted servers, the cloud if you refer to it that way, we could bring improvements to the use of that important telephone number. So how does it work? With ouroldnumber.com, your home telephone number can now reach you wherever you are, and any member of the family, anytime. Callers to your home number hear a personalized greeting Thank you for calling the Swensons. For Lisa, press 1. For Jeff, press 2. To leave a message, press 0. If you press 1, you're going to reach my wife's cell phone. If you press 2, you're going to reach mine. If you press 0, you can record a voicemail, and it will forward on to our email address, and we can listen to it either from our cell phone or from our computer, or we can go into our dashboard on our customer dashboard and listen to it there. One of the unexpected benefits of ouroldnumber.com, we didn't plan for this, it just worked out this way. It blocks effectively most sales calls. Because our equipment is hosted in the cloud, callers are coming in, robocalls come in, they're going to hear a personalized greeting. They can't make a selection, they can't press 1 or 2. They'll time out and hang up. Live telemarketers are paid to talk to live people, so they generally will hang up when they hear a recorded message. So one of the unexpected benefits is blocking sales calls. Because our equipment and our service is hosted in the cloud, there's no equipment for the homeowner to install. You don't even need an internet connection for this to work. Best of all, it's less expensive than a traditional landline telephone. The average landline in the U.S. costs about $32.72 a month. Our service is $9.99, so our customers save on average about $20 a month. Our old number in a nutshell. Very fast. It's a rather complex subject, but it's a really simple subject. If you have any questions, of course, we'll take them later, but what I'd really like to know from this group is, based on what you've seen this morning, what's the most compelling aspect of that product or service that I just told you about? Maybe nothing, maybe 5 things. Based on what you've seen this morning, what would keep you from buying this service? Based on what you've seen this morning, how best, in your thoughts, what are your thoughts on how we can communicate this to our market? And then any other thoughts that you might have. Thank you for your attention. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Well, that's a very valid issue, and it's a long answer, but the short answer is, with E911, generally emergency services can now find you based on your cell phone. So if you use our service, you're going to have a cell phone that you're using to make outbound phone calls. If you dial 911, they're going to find you based on the geolocation of your cell phone, not necessarily on the location of your home telephone number. You know, it's an interesting phenomenon with number portability, that your number can now be ported anywhere. So if you were to, let's say my brother in Owatonna has a 507 area code and he moved to Phoenix, he could take his number with him with another provider in Phoenix. So now when the fire department sees 507-444 in Phoenix, how do they know where that person is? So, you know, portability has kind of messed that up. E911 solves that problem. That's a very short answer to a complex question, but it's a good point.
As a follow-up, there's still that perception and there's education, because most people feel that if it's not a landline, ambulances can't get there. How long is that going to take for people to, or how do you communicate with those people?
That was number 3 on the list. It's not fair if you ask me the same questions I'm asking you. But no, it's a very valid point. One of the challenges that we faced with this service is, simply put, people think, that's brilliant. And then they don't do anything. You know, they run into that hesitation. Well, what if not, you know, what if the ambulance can't find me? Or what about my home alarm system? Or I live in a fire or flood zone and I have to have that for the fire department to tell me to evacuate. Or what about if there's a power outage? I want my phone to work if there's a power outage. Those are all valid reasons for not implementing this service. But there is a little bit of fallacy in each one of those reasons. If you have a home alarm system, you really shouldn't be hooked up to a landline. Somebody cuts it, you don't have an alarm. You should you ask your alarm company to set you up on wireless. Most are now. If you have cordless phones in your home, or if you have a bundled service, you've got your landline and your cable and your internet bundled up on I'm not going to endorse somebody, but your cable provider. All of those services are flowing through a modem. And that modem runs on electricity. And if the power's out, your modem's out and you don't have a phone. Cordless phones run on electricity. If the power's out, your cordless phones don't work. So there's a little modicum of validity to each one of those reasons. But to your point, in people's minds, there's a big amount of validity to those reasons. So that's our challenge. How do we get past it? The second challenge we face is people don't know about this. A lot of people know you can forward your landline phone to your cell phone. That's not uncommon. Every provider will do that. Snowbirds do it all the time. They, or people, lake people forward their phone up to their cabin, so when they're gone, they can get calls to their home. But it only goes to one person, and you have to be paying for a landline and the forwarding service in order to have that service. Our service will get to anybody, anywhere. That was a long answer to a short question, sorry.
What is your revenue model and price point, and who do you view your competition to be?
Well, the price point is $9.99 a month. Without getting too detailed in our revenue model would be a long discussion, but the margins in this service are substantial, about 65%, because it's essentially a virtual service. There are not, I don't know how many people know anything about the telephone business, but when I started in the telephone business in 1980, the central office switches to provide your home phone service in a given geographic area could fill this room. Now, it wouldn't take up as much room as that vase with the advancements in technology. So the margins are substantial. And I forget, what was the third part of your question? Competition. Well, to be completely honest, there aren't any competitors with exactly this service. There are a couple of commercial operators that have developed recently, eVoice is one, that use similar technology to create a virtual PBX for a business, but they're going after businesses as opposed to consumers. So their revenue model is $29.95 a month, and you generally have seen this in a lot of industries, particularly telecom. Everybody's going after the business customer because the ARPU's higher. And nobody bothers with the residential customer because the revenue's lower, but they're also more loyal. Telecommunications companies have been swapping customers back and forth for the last 30 years since the advent of competition, and they've spent a lot of ad money doing it and a lot of sales commissions doing it. So the competition is really non-existent. There are a number of players like Vonage, Ooma, MagicJack you've probably heard of. But all of those services provide a piece of equipment connected to your internet or your modem to forward to one cell phone. So it's not quite the same.
So what challenges have you had, and what's preventing you from?
Well, the challenge is education. People will go to our website, and I won't tell you the website story, but we now have a very plain, vanilla, simple website that's got a lot of information on it, as opposed to a lot of graphics, because we found that people want information. And so since we've changed to that, people are spending 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 minutes, which people in the marketing business will tell you is an eternity, on the site. They're checking their number for service availability. They're checking the terms and conditions. They're even clicking on the sign-up button, but they don't go all the way there. I don't know why. That's why I'm here. For every why, someone's got a different reason. They just can't live without that phone on the wall. Their alarm's hooked up to it. All of those. I think there's a fair amount of disconnect between when people see an ad, use their mobile phone to look at it, pore over the site, and go, "That's a great idea. As soon as I get home, I'm going to get my phone bill out and I'm going to sign up. Oh, look, a squirrel." And they're gone. So we're not exactly sure how to overcome that. The way we are trying to overcome it is just like this, visiting with people in various entrepreneurial communities, spread the word. Maybe somebody in here, I know when we went to present it in Fargo, we got some customers from Fargo. When we got some customers from Fargo, we just activated them over the last week. Their services went active. and they've already told somebody, and that somebody signed up. I'm making an assumption there. But those word-of-mouth connections start to happen.
Yeah, I guess it's somewhat leading from this question of marketing. So how do you get the people to actually get to the website? Yeah.
Good question. Right now we're using Facebook, primarily. Facebook ads. We did have an advertising agency that we engaged. We were getting 400-500 visits a day to the website, and they weren't doing anything. They were in and out of there in less than 5 seconds. And so that's where we made the decision to get off the graphics and more to give people information. We've also taken out ads with an organization called AMAC. I would characterize AMAC as a conservative AARP, but they have 620,000 members who are avid members, and they look at the information, and we've gotten about half our customers from them, and they're the least expensive advertising medium. There's a group here in Minnesota called Minnesota Seniors Online. It's a support resource for Minnesota seniors, everything from home care and senior living to getting your taxes done cheaply and so forth. We have an ad on their website, and they've done a nice article about us. So right now it's purely online.
Did you do any testing of the website?
No. I'll stay with it now. No, we didn't. This has been, back to your question about the revenue model, this has been bootstrapped pretty much from the beginning with my own funds. So we've been on a limited budget. So we have hired some professionals. We've got, the development is all done. I should tell you that the system's up and running, and we're marketing it, and we're taking on customers. So we're past development. We're now trying to get the funding we need, or for me to find the funding I need to kind of spread our wings a little bit more. And coming down to see you here is a less expensive way than buying an ad on AARP. But we really haven't done a lot of formal market testing. And we should, because there are probably 12 subset markets. I've had it suggested to me that the 35-year-olds, the millennials, should be selling this to their parents, because their parents will trust them more than they'll trust a website. And I think that's probably true. There's the Snowbird and the RV set. We put posters in RV and snowbirds resorts all across the South, and we've gotten a fair response to that. Then there's just there's my oldest customer is in the room today, and he's been on the service for 3 years, and he can tell you, his own experience as a family with three young boys at home. They're at high school, now at college, and living away from home. But they're still on the service, and so if someone calls for Scott, they press 4, and it goes to the University of North Dakota, where Scott really is, instead of Owatonna. So.
You mentioned that kind of explain that without
no.
not disclosing.
This goes to some history, which may not be that interesting, but we had this idea about 3.5 years ago. I was managing an IT company in Oklahoma City. We had a bunch of developers and resources around us so we could build some things like this. We had this idea, and we built it, and we called it Gorilla Voice. And I'll speak privately about that, but we put it out there. I think we had 60-some customers sign up just from Facebook, the staff putting it on Facebook. We signed up 84 customers from people who were calling the existing customers and going, what's that? What have you got on your phone? So the word of mouth was very strong. But we sold it. And then they shut it down. Our owners were private equity. They didn't like really spending new money on new ideas. And so we shut the whole thing down. I loved the idea. It was my idea. And so off we go with ouroldnumber.com. But because it was commercialized, you can't patent it. And nobody can patent it. So it was an unfortunate error on our part way back when, but
My daughter sells cell phones for a reseller for Verizon, okay? And of course, they've got their home phone line too, which of course is a plug-in to the internet box, et cetera. But, making those connections, the volume in that category of new lines is dropped. And there's a lot of other distribution channels. The complexity of the sale is fairly significant. Of course, a lot of that's trying to migrate to online, but then of course they come in for the tons of service, which of course they don't get paid commission on. But the cell phone world and the technology world, I've taken over my parents and my kids all into one big account, and so I spend a lot of time with it. But I've spent less time in the last few years because there's less decisions to make. But the concern is everyone's kind of getting locked into their cell phone contracts, which is a big part of their utility bill, if you want to call it that. How does this tie into the rest of my system, per se?
Well, that's the economic rationale for this service. You're paying for your cell phone now, so is everybody else in this room. And you're paying for your landline. First slide. Why are people paying for that landline service when mostly they're using their cell phones? And they're paying a lot of money for them. They're paying, how many people in here have ever spent $500 or more for a landline telephone desk set? How many people have spent $500 or more for a mobile device? But we still have that landline phone sitting on there, and we're still paying 30 or 40 or 50 bucks a month for it. The only people who use it are people trying to sell you aluminum siding, and maybe Aunt Ida. So why do you still have it? And we've been through that. I won't repeat it. But you could save money by getting rid of it because you don't need it anymore. With ouroldnumber.com, we can make your home number useful to you on all those mobile devices that you're already paying for and locked into. So it doesn't, and I want to clarify, it doesn't replace your cell phone number. It just routes calls to your home to your cell phone.
I have a number of comments, and this is very anecdotal. My mother's 84 years old in Ohio, 1,000 miles away. I call her every day, so do some of my brothers and her best friend. You've obviously done demographic research. You're getting your best result from AARP type, 50 plus demographics, correct?
Yes.
Have you thought about the aspect of personal security, like, medical alert type of thing? Though I haven't lived in Ohio for 30 years, some people still call my mother's number to reach me. People still call my mother's number to reach my other two brothers. You have a brilliant service, and that my mother could set up her phone line so that if they call her number, it forwards to my cell, my brother's cell, or my other brother's cell, all of us who are hundreds of miles apart. Have you thought about marketing that benefit, solution to a problem of family communication through the matriarch, is what my mother is?
Earlier I mentioned there were like 12 subset markets in this, for this product. One of them was, and this is a little unrelated, but I'm coming back around. My neighbor asked me if she could use this service for her father. He was ailing and they were considering having to put him in assisted living, and he was really concerned apparently that people aren't going to be able to find me anymore on my home number. Said, can we take his home number and forward it to his cell phone? So when he's in the nursing home, calls to his home would go there. I said, yeah, she just about jumped for joy. And in fact, I have that little story on the website. Well, that's a whole market that we didn't think of. People going into senior living, take that number they've had for 50 years with them on their cell phones, to the extent that they're cell phone enabled, and I get that not everybody is. To your point, yes, we've thought of that. We've thought of a lot of things, and I'm not going to go through all of them here, but there is a way to do that. Create a broadcast function. So if someone calls the house, you can, instead of hitting 1 for Bob, 2 for Sally, 3 for Edna, you hit 4 for call everybody, and it literally goes to everybody. And somebody would answer, and you'd have a conference. If everybody answered, you'd have a conference call. If nobody answered, you'd have a broadcast voicemail message. but funds are limited, time is limited. I'm trying to focus on one thing right now. We've got a whole bunch of other ideas, like rent a number. You know, when you sell your car in the newspaper, you don't want people to have your cell phone, so you know, if you don't have a house phone anymore, you just rent a number for $4 and you put it in there in the ad, and that's your number, and it rings to your cell phone, but they don't know what that number is. No, well, yeah. My neighbor is your age, so am I, close to it. Okay, and her father is 82, and she was asking me, could she use it for her father? So we haven't really approached this from the 80 and below market. My mother-in-law loves me to death. She thinks I hung the moon. She's 87, almost. She won't buy the service because she's scared to death that her cell phone battery will run out and she won't have a phone. Now, that phone hardly ever leaves her hand. She sits in her chair and she has that thing and she's looking at Facebook and she's taking calls and making calls, but she's scared to death that that phone on the wall won't be there. So that's just a function of comfort. That's not really our market. But no matter how much she likes me, I can't convince her to do that. But now your application is slightly different. We have an elderly aunt who's exactly the same age as my mother-in-law, except for one day. She is living in Arizona. None of us are. She has no children. You know, is there a way we could use this application that you just described to communicate with her or with all of us? I'm going to give that some more thought. But to answer your question, yeah, we thought of a lot of things we can do with this, but not all at the same time. Yeah.
I'd like to make one more comment. We need to wrap up. I'm sorry for the next presenter.
Sure.
This is just a piece of information. Most of the people I know that hang on to their old number or their landline is specifically because of the clarity and ease of which they can hear on that landline as opposed to the clipping that happens with a cell phone. I'm sure you're aware of this, but that's one thing you'll have to be aware to address. I'm going to hand the mic to...
We'll do one more with Dan, and then we can wrap it up.
I just was curious with your system if you have a security. So in other words, if you hit the if you call the landline and it bounces off and it goes to someone's cell phone, do you have a way to have security on the cell phone? Because now you can hack into people's cell phones and so forth. And maybe we couldn't landlines, I just didn't know it.
I'm not sure if I understand exactly what you're getting to, but well, as long as you have a communications link, whether it's satellites, landlines, fiber, coax, or the wireless airwaves, that, you know, if somebody's in your cell phone, they're in your cell phone. Yeah. I'm not sure that can be addressed with what we're doing, but that's probably above my pay grade. So, thank you very much. I think I've overstayed my welcome.